inquire and bring gifts for the birth of a new king. They most likely came to what we know today as Iran, reminding us again to look for God's presence in unexpected places and among unexpected people. The homeless, Syrian refugees, undocumented immigrants, and us. From Matthew chapter 2, verses 1 through 12. In the time of King Herod, after Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea, wise men from the east came to Jerusalem asking, "Where is the child who is born King of the Jews? For we observed his star at its rising and have come to pay him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was frightened, and all Jerusalem with him, and calling together all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Messiah was to be born. They told him, "In Bethlehem of Judea. For so it has been written by the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among rulers of Judah. For from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod secretly called for the wise men, learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared, and sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so I may also go and pay him homage." When the Magi had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them was the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. The word of God for the people of God. This is a familiar story through Advent and Christmas Eve and Day, and now Epiphany. We run the arc of our faith story. Advent is really about the second coming of Christ, and understanding that he's been and will come again, leading us to really acknowledge his first coming as a babe in a manger. But think about this. What if it had stopped there? He would have been a babe in a manger in Jerusalem. But how does the rest of the world get to know who he is, where he is, and God in him? The big reveal of our story really sits in this Epiphany time. In the story of the Magi, who come from places in the East, from a religion whose focus is astrology and enchantment. They come from Medes and Persia and Babylonia. Interesting, in that we know through the Old Testament that these three places were hardly friends of the Jewish people and the land of Judah. Lots of exile and fighting and conquering and so on and so forth. So why these three guys and why this child? Well, think about it. These Magi from these places that we might associate with terrifying places today in our own culture, in our own time, were astrologers. So if a new star appears in the sky, and astrology is a part of what they worship, can you imagine them going, "Oh, look at that. There's a new star in the sky." What would they do but follow him? Follow the star and see where it went. Mind you, this whole process, this story, fulfills a prophecy, but more than that, it's the narrative of our story and the great reveal of who we are. So they follow the star. And because they are from the countries that they are from, it's not inconceivable that Herod, who is frightened of this child and a threat to his throne, would try to align with them and say, "Hey, where is this kid? And will you go and check it out? Spy for me. And then let me know where he is, and I'll go and pay him homage just like you." So they started out with the idea of following a star. They met with Herod, who gave them an alternative plan that said, "I want you to spy. I want you to take in information from me." Because it's hard to imagine Herod assigning any other intent, despite his words. But a funny thing happened when they followed that star to where it stopped. and went in to see a baby in a manger. They fell down on their knees in what in the culture of the day would have been an attitude of worship. And in those moments, as they gave gold, significant of man's riches, frankincense and incense that they associate with God or a deity, and myrrh that foreshadowed something that would come. They had stepped outside of their own faith tradition into a more global view. God revealed to more than just the small town of Bethlehem, to more than just the Jewish people. It became a worldview in that moment. God revealing himself in a variety of ways, every day, in more ways than we can count, but we miss them when we get settled into the story in such a way that we miss the nuances that tell us why we tell the story, why it's important from there. We had guests with us on Christmas Day who are not often in our church. They came in and the setup was similar to what we have now, except that the manger was sitting out here, clearly empty. And as they were leaving for the day, the question was asked, why is there no baby in the manger? And before I could say anything, there were two of them. One friend said to the other, well, because it's Christmas Day. It would have been in the manger on Christmas Eve. And I, in my infinite, mouth before mine, said, no, there's no baby in the manger. Why? There was an expectation. I'm not sure I can tell you when I stopped doing that. Certainly in the time that I've been here, there's been no baby or representative of a baby in a manger, other than a little bit of flannel or swaddling clothes. And I didn't really have great, clear thoughts about why until about 10 or 15 minutes after they left. One of those, but epiphany of sorts. Because I got to thinking that the real reason behind my not wanting any baby there is, who would you choose? White? Black? Asian? Maybe one of the Eastern countries. China. Who would you choose? This is the epiphany, folks. This is the big reveal that says, if I choose who goes there, then I'm choosing for you what God looks like for you. No one can do that. If just the suggestion is there, if there's not too much to distract us from what might be here, who and how, we can more freely enter into why we believe as we do. You may have noticed, I'll bet my Sunday school teachers have, that I removed the picture of Jesus that was in the pastor's office, and I don't have any reflections of Christ in the office, and that's also for the same reason. Not to deny him, but to honor the possibility that my view is limited, so limited that it excludes yours from entering in. On the 22nd of December, I joined a friend pre-Christmas for movie and dinner and a chance to catch up with one another. We are familiar with one another's faith journeys, and it was more challenging than I anticipated it to be, because she is tending that more and more and more towards Judaism and a different point of view, and y'all know where I stand. And she has difficulty with the fact that the baby in the manger is a boy, that we load all that stuff on that one baby, because there were a lot of baby boys born and a lot of prophets and a lot of crucifixions in that day, so why this one? And I can feel, and this is as fierce as I've ever heard her, because usually we're pretty open to one another in how we see God. Wow, interesting timing. What do I say here? And at first I started to defend. And then I stepped back back and I thought, here's the thing. Like the picture of Jesus, like a baby in a manger, I don't have any need to force my beliefs on this person who's seeking her own. My job is to open my ears and hear her language and her belief system and where she is so that we might have a conversation that doesn't come slamming back and forth at one another. I see heads nodding. What is this revealed thing about with Epiphany? It's all these things. They come in different ways. Those are the obvious things, the faith-related things. It's been a particularly interesting Christmas season for me. Not the easiest one, I have to admit. Many of you know that a good friend of mine passed away the Sunday following Thanksgiving. And that in that process, that finding out that he was ill, finding out about his death, I had a momentary connection with a stepbrother that I hadn't heard from in 25 years. Probably won't hear from him again for another 25. I could be hurt about that and shed a few tears about that. I could be angry. Or I could listen to his language that says, for whatever reason, he needs that distance. And I have the opportunity, because of the baby and the God I know here, to simply hold and examine within myself and how I interact with the people around me that are here, so that Christ might be revealed in me. This is potentially a lightweight story unless we take all the separate pieces that lead to this reveal of more than just us seeing Christ in a manger. It starts with Mary, who is visited and within her, conceived by the Holy Spirit, is a baby boy. It continues with Joseph. We walked through this story in detail this year, who in a dream is told not to leave her, to make a choice. These are little choices with big effects. Shepherds who are terrified of angels go against their grain to go and see a king and don't find a king that's so far off they can't touch him, but a baby wrapped in the same swaddling clothes they would use for their own. And suddenly the idea of God is made real in a way they can touch and feel and know in their language, in their way. The Magi come from these eastern provinces that have been against Judah for centuries and step through all of that to honor what they can see and know because of a star in a place that would be unexpected for them, and bring him their culture's version of gifts for a king and recognize him as someone outside their own. Again, given the opportunity and the language and the openness of a family who could have seen them coming and said, oh yeah, we're out of here. Because can you imagine what the Holy Family must have thought when these three individuals came in? God's grace upon grace sits inside every element of this story, revealed and revealed and revealed again, and we have that opportunity to step into those spaces in our own lives and see what that looks like. I've shared my stories, just a snapshot of them. What are yours? And what does this story really mean to you and to me? Christ is revealed. Do we come in and kneel before our King? Do we open our minds and hearts, no matter where we are? God first. Thank you, Janet. And when we are, and how we are to hold for long enough that the Christ revealed here, implanted here, is revealed here and out there and beyond. That's the whole point of the story. That it's not just us. And it's not not just our way and our thing and our thinking. It's God. Present in us, revealed in us, in the events that look a little sideways, or a lot. That put us in a position to make choices that are seemingly small, but have huge impacts on the people we're with. It's a reveal that takes some time and energy to walk through. It's not some big light, although the story would have us look at it in that way. All along the way, scripturally, we're given the steps that lead to the reality of the story and why we believe that this babe was born of a virgin and came as God's love incarnate to save us all. How is God revealed in you? In me? How do we reflect that in one another in such a way that anyone who comes into contact with us will know that Christ is real and here? Not to win them over, but to show them what God's love looks like, who God is, how we know God, and invite a conversation that allows us to learn and grow in the same way that the Magi did in front of a baby in a manger. It's so simple and so difficult and so amazing. May it be so in all of us.